This week, we're going to be talking about something called the psychology of certainty. What is it, and how can you use it to level up? So, the psychology of certainty is something that businesses use in marketing. And the premise behind it is this: the more certain someone is about something, the more likely they are to act on it. So, certainty motivates and moves people to action. Let's just take a look at how this works in business, and then we'll see how we can apply it to ourselves. There are three components to the psychology of certainty, but we're only going to talk about two. The first one is consensus. Have you ever been trying to find a movie on Netflix and you'll take a look at the description, but what do you really look at? Don't you look at the rating? If the rating says that it's 4.5 stars and 50 people have watched it, you might want to watch it. If, on the other hand, the rating is 2 stars and 50 people have watched it, most likely you won't watch it. This idea of consensus, going along with what the majority of people think, is part of the psychology of certainty. That's why we have rating systems. That's why we have things like Yelp. If we see a lot of people saying one thing, that seems to make us certain of that particular thing, whether it's true or not. The second component is something called repetition, and that's pretty straightforward too. Again, in business, the way it's used is if you hear something over and over and over and over and over again, most likely it's going to stick in your head and prompt you to action. So, for example, if you're watching a movie that has commercials and you see the same commercial about a certain restaurant over and over and over, and the next time you're watching a movie, that same restaurant, that same commercial with that restaurant is coming up, you're more likely to go to that restaurant when you're hungry. That's just the way psychology of certainty works. So the two keys are consensus, what everyone else is saying or agreeing upon, and number two, repetition. That's how it works in business. How can you use this psychology of certainty to improve yourself, to level up? By making sure that, number one, you surround yourself with people who are going to give you a consensus that is positive. So, in other words, if you're around people who are always telling you, yeah, you could do that. Sure, you'd be great at that. Yeah, give it a try. You ought to try it. Then that's going to give you a mindset that will allow you to try things, to try and explore, that will build up your self-esteem. On the other hand, if the consensus that you're getting from people, your friends, your family, individuals at school, if the consensus you're getting is negative, you're not as smart as your brother. Why in the world would you do that? You're not smart. You shouldn't try that. You're going to fail. That will affect you as well. This ties in very nicely with that second thought of repetition. If you are constantly hearing positive feedback every day, that's going to affect the way you think, give you that growth mindset, give you a growth environment. If, on the other hand, you're always getting negative feedback, getting that negative repetition, that will affect you negatively. This sounds very, very simple and obvious, but it's really the metacognitive portion that's going to benefit you most. So here's a metacognitive assignment. This week, note at home, with your friends, and at school, what type of consensus people have about you. How do the majority of people feel and talk about you? And then number two, notice what type of repetition, what type of message you're getting on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. If you're getting a negative consensus and a negative repetitive message, there's two things you can do. You can take a look inside and say, wow, maybe I need to change. Maybe there are things that I do need to work on. Or you need to change your association. Find people who see the good in you, who see your potential, who see how much you can do. So this week, notice what the consensus of people are around you, what their consensus of you is, and what message you are hearing repetitively. And if it's negative, do something about it. Hopefully this was helpful. We'll see you next time.